Well, I think the good news that I'm speaking about is something that we have been waiting well, Trinidad and Tobago has been waiting for about a decade now. It's something that was actually brought to the office of the President under the People's Partnership Government. And after 7 years under this PNM administration, well, the proclamation of the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Act of 2015 was finally brought forward yesterday, and it has received praise as is required. Sean, this is a step in the right direction.
Well, it's a step, but the question is, why did it take so long? What is the reason for it to take so long? What is the reason for having numerous programs over the last 8 years without taking this step, right? Is it a coincidence that the former regulator is the former? Munira Lalcha no longer has the position of overseeing that whole office or operation. Is that the reason? Because his term of office, his time ended January the 11th. Is there some other reason? Are all the deals that was on their rhetorical table on the table? Was it just a bureaucratic reason? That for whatever the red tape was, they weren't able to efficiently navigate through it. I wouldn't be surprised if there's no malicious intent behind it, just somewhere along the way, whether it is an elected official or a bureaucrat who they and all can't control because it's just...
You've raised some valid concerns. Why did it take so long, and are there any coincidences such as the fact that the term of the former chairman, Mr. Munira Lalchan of the OPR, the Office of the Procurement Regulator, that came to an end on January 11th, was that a factor as well? I can't speak to that because I'm not entirely sure, though I have concerns. My thing is, though, I'm actually going to celebrate this, and I'm actually giving credit where credit is due, because even though it took 7 years and the government, I think, tried to make 3 amendments to the Act, finally it's come into play. Following the comments by the Prime Minister recently, where he's saying that money is hard, money is hard to come by and hard to get, and though there's still questionable expenditure, there is, or should be at least, a greater transparency and accountability now, because any contracts that come from the government, signed by the government, are supposed to go through the OPR, and only registered companies are now allowed to be given contracts. Registered companies with the OPR will receive contracts. The OPR now puts it into its database, presents it to Parliament, so the public has a better understanding. And I firmly believe that if we want transparency and accountability, before they said, give roses where the roses are due. And I think, to me, I'm happy for this.
No, because the questions over the delay. So think about it. Literally speaking, while the activities that this act is supposed to ensure are done in a certain manner, above board, transparently, properly, were being done, this was being stalled. And what was reported, and maybe this is just an error of reporting, not giving the correct context, but what is reported is it was decided over a cabinet meeting to proclaim it now. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's all it took. So, again, why now? And the unfortunate thing is, if the government is too foolish to understand, it's not about what you did or what you potentially did. But you have crafted a scenario. You, not the opposition. The opposition doesn't have to have anything to do with this. You have crafted a scenario that any objective person that is wary is going to say, well, this is not looking right. Why it took so long?
But so, if I may ask you, okay, for the last 7 years we've had our concerns, I understand that. Isn't there any notion that this is progress? And nope. 2, my question to you is, you asked, why now? Why not now? Would you have preferred if it was delayed any longer?
No. Again, so I'm not gonna give kudos for reducing the damage when the damage is potentially more than way in excess of what it should be. And more importantly, you need to know who the regulator is going to be before you determine if this is actually going to be, even have a chance of being effective or not. Now, if one wants to make a case that based off of merit, Munir Lal Chan did not deserve the post or was not appropriate for the post, fine. But if I'm the government, right, and I appoint somebody that has any sort of connection to me whatsoever, it doesn't matter how large it is, it could be the most minute thing, don't be surprised when everybody that does not include their diehard supporters will find an issue with it. Because, again, you wait until somebody who you can't get rid of is out of office to replace it with somebody that potentially, well, it's your choice, right?
But you're also making your judgment based off of assumptions. I'm not saying, again, I'm stressing that it is not necessarily invalid. But if we are to judge on assumptions, then perhaps we're the fools.
Well, part of the problem is when we do not have full information because people don't want to
full information
give us
yet.
information. In what scenario that was controversial have we had enough information to be confident?
I'm saying as yet because I'm still awaiting, as are you, and to see who the next chairman of the OPR is. That is my concern. The next step, I think, and I don't know if you're alluding that this legislation should be retroactive. I don't know if that is what you're alluding to.
No, I'm not. But to some extent, the damage is done. With regards to, I mean, the IMF said it. I showed the clip. With regards to the inefficiency of expenditure on not earning or not getting enough of an outcome. So with regards to healthcare, healthcare is not effective enough probably for the money we spend. Our education system is not effective enough probably for the money we spend. Our criminal justice system, one cannot argue in any way, shape or form, right? Granted, I actually still think that it needs more resources for certain areas. But other problems, I don't know if it's a question of resources, like with regards to why trials take so long. Is it just a question of resources? I don't know, right? But at the end of the day, given everything that has happened, given all of the unexplained negative scenarios that we've had with regards to the Commission of Police and the withdrawal of the list and the Police Service Commission, with regards to, well, what's going on with PARIA and the board appointees there, right? In what scenario do we not see the selection, for all intents and purposes, of the next president?
If I may ask you,
Why am I going to give them? Because you have to assume it, you have to make assumptions either way, to accept or not.
If I may ask you, if you, as an individual on Talking Point, and you've strongly advocated and argued for procurement legislation, now that this has happened, you're seeing that the damage is already done. So my question to you, as somebody who has advocated for it, it has come to pass, but now you're seeing the damage has already been done. Are you suggesting that this legislation now does not make sense or is not necessary?
No, I'm not entirely sure to what extent, because again, there were criticisms about the regulation. So it very well could not make sense, right? I'm not an expert on the law and I'm not an expert on procurement. So we'll have to see how these things play out over time. All I know is that this was a topic on Talking Point when Talking Point started 501 episodes ago, right? It's been 2 years. And more importantly, not only have we seen big projects and a lot of questions that come with them, of which I'm not even going with the bubble of Balize House, right? The actual government projects alone, right? Who gets these contracts? How much is it for? Why do we have it, right? I understand that the THA executive and all is all for the Tobago airport. Why do we need a 3 million capacity airport, right? We look at what's happening with national security and the fire tenders, right? That turned into a mess. So all of these issues, why are they proclaiming it now? Well, maybe because they need something positive. They need something positive, and they decide, look, the cost of putting it out and proclaiming it is less than the cost of not. So let's do it now. I don't see this as a win, because if it was so simple to proclaim, why did it take so long? And you have to have an answer for that question. But what will most likely happen is very few government ministers will talk to the press. The Prime Minister will have a press conference if there's enough of a hullabaloo made about this. But will we get direct answers that will satisfy the public? Probably not. The vast majority of analysts, pundits, talking heads like you and I will probably not be 100% satisfied. Hell, I might be more satisfied with the explanation than you when that time comes. But even then, I doubt that I would be willing to say, oh, I'm 100% satisfied with that.
I think the difference between you and I right now in this particular position is I am actually very much satisfied, and I'm happy that it has been proclaimed. I think it's a step in the right direction, and I hope that its true intent and its form that is in with respect to a greater public transparency and accountability comes to light. I think that is why I'm satisfied, that's why I'm happy. The delays, of course, and the frustrations associated with the delays will always be there and always be questionable, but I'd rather it happen today than tomorrow.
Yeah, but I think that's letting them off too easy. That said, this could all be easily sidestepped, parried, countered, what have you, depending on who they pick. If they pick someone who is at least viewed as independent. I mean, with regards to this motive, if you just get Munilal Chal back, right, that would go a long way to that'll be the cheap way to assuage any sort of fears over bad faith with regards to why it took so long. But I doubt that's going to happen. I don't even know if he's going to be able to serve for a full term or what those regulations would be. But if you get somebody who is perceived as neutral, that will go a long way to make this scenario not look like a mess. But that's what we thought when Reginald Amor was appointed AG, and it still eventually turned into a mess.
I think anybody who is appointed by a government will always have that umbrella under them. Just bear that in mind. Public perception it's in France, we go a very small island, very small republic.
I know of one man who
public perception is very much a very difficult thing to try and conquer.
I know of one scenario where that actually did not happen.
What are you alluding to, Gary Griffith?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in that sense, when Gary Griffith was appointed, you had to wonder what was going on there. But to the later half of his time as Commissioner of Police, you saw how he was very critical of moves by the government.
But politically.
But just bear something in mind as well.
Politically, it was a good move when they first rolled it out.
There is one factor that you're not considering, though, and that is the government did everything to facilitate Gary Griffith. For example, they removed Edmund Dillon as Minister of National Security because Edmund Dillon and Gary Griffith doesn't get along. They put Stuart Young, right? So just bear that in mind. They facilitated him as well. But look at Richie Sukai, now the Minister in the Ministry of Works and Transport. What's about public perception there? You know, so even with Munilal Lalchan being chairman,
that's different. That's different because you're putting somebody who was thought of as not independent to the PNM, and you're bringing him into a direct role under the PNM.
But prior to him being appointed even as senator, the perception that Richie Sukai was independent, that existed?
Well, to the PNM. Was he a PNM member? Was he a PNM supporter, a diehard? Did you expect him? I didn't say independent. No, I'm right, but I didn't say independent. I said independent of the PNM.
Right.
I don't know what his political affiliations are.
This is the thing. There will always be perception. Always be. Heck, listen, there's perception of you and I on this program.
Was he perceived as a PNMite?
But that's why I'm saying it took everybody by surprise.
But they did not put him in an independent position. He was not put on a service commission. He was given a senatorial post at their side of Parliament, and their side of the Senate. Right? So you could start off looking independent, but you more or less declared your intentions there, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But my point is you can't compare his scenario to something like this, where you would, or the Police Service Commission, or the Public Service Commission, or the RIC, or the President, where you would have preferred to see someone who was independent of political ties, or at least had enough of a perception of independence?
Again, I think we perhaps have two different opinions, but that's fine. That's absolutely fine.